Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? So today was a walkthrough. Did you all have access at all today?
I don't believe so. I certainly wasn't able to make it out there for that one.
Okay.
But, not much that we usually get to see during walkthroughs.
Right.
Walkthroughs are usually kind of just, a little bit of this, a little bit of that in terms of them literally walking through what it is that they're, kind of looking to implement the next day. I imagine it was a lot of Andy Dalton and Ian Book getting ready for Friday's game.
Let's look back at the 2 full days of practice, and then I'll ask some perspective for the game and what to watch. What was, if you had maybe a bullet point, couple of big takeaways from the days of inter-squad practices, what would you say?
Yeah, look, I think defense was definitely a huge part of the conversation when it came to those first 2 practices. The Saints defense and the Green Bay defense both performed extremely well. But the thing that I really enjoyed about watching the Saints defense is just the sort of variety of names that you saw pop on the field at some point, whether it was Paulson Adebo with the downfield pass breakup, or Bradley Roby with a downfield interception, or Marcus May with a downfield interception. And when it wasn't some of those big name guys, sometimes it was some of the guys that we tend to I would call them unsung for a little while. Guys like Malcolm Roach, who, consistently drew pressure or consistently caused pressure, was very disruptive in both the pass and the run game. Tano Passanio with a sack to end Aaron Rodgers' last 2-minute drill simulation yesterday after a Paulson Adebo pass breakup. So one of the things that I really enjoyed is just the variety of places where plays are being made over the defensive side. It's not just those big names, it's not just those starters, but every now and then you're just hearing some names like Chase Hansen and Eric Wilson, and even a guy like John Bostic, who's played very well in the run game. So I really enjoyed that. And then the other kind of thing that I would highlight would be over on the offensive side, even when the offense hasn't been impressive and it's stumbled going up against that really good Green Bay Packers defense throughout these last couple of days, the big names that you expect that can still come out there and make plays and making plays. Chris Olave had probably his maybe strongest kind of outing in camp so far on Wednesday. Michael Thomas had a really solid day. Alvin Kamara continues to get a lot of work. So I think that what that goes to show you is that regardless of which quarterback is under center, regardless of what the game situation may be, the Saints have a defense that can win them games, and they have an offense and enough skill position players now in the offense that can make those 1 or 2 plays that can be a big impact moment for you in games.
Ross, I know our focus is the Saints, but it's kind of hard to avoid what happened with the Packers in that Aaron Rodgers apparently chastised his receivers. They had to have this big kumbaya meeting with the receivers and the coaches and all that sort of stuff. Is this a product of the Saints defensive backs just having a really big couple of days against that Green Bay passing game?
I think it certainly accentuated the issue. It's not an issue that has been specific to this week. And my understanding is that, there have been some, comments and things like that have been being made, over the course of the offseason altogether when it comes to questioning the wide receivers and the wide receiver core. And it's certainly not out of the ordinary for Aaron Rodgers. We've seen this kind of stuff before. But, I think that there's certainly an accentuation that comes from being stymied by a very, very good and strong defense that just kind of accentuates the frustration, right? Really helps to build the frustration when you can't get anything going up against a different team. And then all of a sudden it just feels very different. The competition feels very different. And so I think that, I think the Saints certainly contributed to some of that frustration, but I do, as I understand it, know that there have been some consistent issues over the course of the offseason over in that area of the conversation for them.
Do we have an update on James Hurst and Trevor Penning and the guys that got tweaked a little bit?
So we saw Trevor Penning, James Hurst, and Sage Doxter all leave. Sage Doxter has been waived injured. So he'll probably revert to IR unless he's picked up by some team on waivers, or if they release him with an injury designation of some sort. They brought in Derek Schweiger, who they worked with over the course of the offseason and was at camp early on in camp, so he's back in the building now. They also brought in Derek Kelly to help with the position, somebody that has seen some snaps for the team over the course of the past couple of years. Trevor Penning came back out on the field yesterday. We saw him play a ton of snaps after he left, so that should be good news. I think we'll learn more obviously, as we get closer to tomorrow's game. And then as for James Hurst, what we know so far is that it's a foot injury, but we don't know the severity of it at this moment. So hopefully we get to see 74 out there. But obviously, if Trevor Penning is healthy and able to get some additional reps, then that's not the end of the world as long as James Hurst isn't a serious injury, which according to Nick Underhill over at New Orleans.football, early sources seem to say that it's not necessarily a major injury at this time.
That's certainly great news as the opener is drawing near. Okay, so for tomorrow's game, for Friday's game against the Packers, who are maybe the few players that you're keeping a close eye on that you feel like need to have a big day?
I think one of the guys, just to start at the quarterback position, that needs the big day is going to be Ian Book. He struggled a bit on last weekend's game against the Houston Texans. He kind of struggled a bit throughout the joint practices with the Packers as well. And he's in a situation now to where he's not necessarily only battling for positioning on the roster, if that were where the battle was for him early. It's now kind of where you're battling for a roster spot, because now you have kind of a built-in emergency quarterback in Taysom Hill at another position, taking up a roster spot elsewhere. So the Saints really need to go with their usual route of keeping 3 quarterbacks on the roster, or can they get away with just keeping 2? So now you're kind of just trying to convince the Saints to keep you on the active roster as opposed to waiving you and hoping that you make it to the practice squad. So I think that he's somebody you're looking for to have a big day. I think a big day from Andy Dalton would also be good from that position. Tre'Quan Smith is a guy that needs a big day, but guys that I'm really going to be watching at that position are Kirk Merritt and Dejon Dixon, who have consistently stood out and had some really nice performances. And you're looking to see what they can do not only in a passing game, but also in the run game and on special teams. It's just part of making the roster as either undrafted free agent or as a recent addition like Kirk Merritt is. And then maybe over on the defensive side, really curious to see if Malcolm Roach can continue the momentum that he started to build up over the course of those joint practices. I think that starting role next to David Onyemata on the defensive interior is still a little bit of a question mark. Former New Orleans Saint Malcolm Brown is back on the market. Maybe there's a reunion opportunity there that I think would certainly make sense. Feels like the Saints have been trying to fill that Malcolm Brown-size hole since they ended up trading him away to the Jacksonville Jaguars. But Malcolm Roach, with his sort of momentum that he's picked up over the last couple of days, if he's able to continue that into some game situations, I think that would go a long way for him.
Ross, you mentioned the receivers, Tre'Quan, Merritt, Dixon. Is there a realistic possibility the Saints keep any one of those guys? I mean, they'd have to keep a 6th receiver. I don't see how it's even possible.
I think the only way that one of those guys ends up making the roster is if they do something that moves them up above Marquez Callaway, which is going to be hard. I mean, they love Marquez Callaway. He does so much. I mean, he's one of the Dennis Allen kind of categorized wide receivers in his presser with us on Wednesday, where he talked about the speed guys, and he specifically mentioned both Chris Olave and Deontay Hardy. Then he went on to talk about the physical guys, specifically mentioning Jarvis Landry and, of course, Michael Thomas. And then he talked about the guys that do the dirty work, which were Marquez Callaway and Tre'Quan Smith. So if I needed to pick 6 wide receivers, to me, they're your 6 wide receivers just based upon what you're hearing from Coach Allen. But I think that you have a bit of a separation there between Tre'Quan Smith and Marquez Callaway. Marquez Callaway proving to be a little bit more of a maybe reliable option in the passing game as of right now, and somebody that you can utilize a lot of different ways. The thing that Tre'Quan Smith has going for him is his contributions in the run game, but Marquez Callaway is a very willing blocker as well, and I think you can get him up to that standard. And so, yeah, they would have to keep a 6 wide receiver. And honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if a guy like Rashid Shaheed, if they were to keep a 6 wide receiver, if he's able to show what he can do this weekend in particular as a return man, because you don't really get to see a lot of kick or punt returns. Those are few or far between in terms of training camp and non-contact practices. How do you grade that? But he got a lot of opportunities fielding those punts and kicks over the course of these joint practices. So if he's able to show you something as a returner, then maybe all of a sudden he becomes an option to maybe steal that 6th spot because of what he brings you on special teams. And then so he becomes a guy that kind of sneaks in that way. But I don't know that the Saints do keep 6, especially considering the amount of tight ends that they have, and certainly feel comfortable as well as the receiving options out of the backfield.
He is Ross Jackson on Twitter at Ross Jackson Nola, the Locked on Saints podcast. Make sure you subscribe up, a Saints Wire as well. Ross, we appreciate it, man. And enjoy the game tomorrow. Safe travels home.
Appreciate you, buddy. Always a pleasure. Thanks so much for having me on. Take care. Stay safe. I'll talk to you soon.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.